building local first web apps. Can we give a round of applause for him, please? As he comes up, can we give a round of applause for this outfit, please? Do you want to do a 360 for the crowd? Okay.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Iniubong Obonguko, and I'm a software engineer and technical writer. So, my vocation, what's my vocation? I like to cook. It could be food, it could also be interfaces or software. And then, yeah, so I already said my occupation, which is software engineering and technical writing. Then, so today I'm going to be speaking to you all on building local first web apps. Yeah. Does anyone here, has anyone here heard of the term local first applications or software before? Show of hands. No hands. Okay, one hand there. All right, next slide. Okay, so what does local first even mean? So local first means, or local first web applications just means applications that prioritize storing your data on device rather than on the cloud. And then, so the on-device storage is the primary method of storing information, and then it periodically synchronizes with the cloud storage. Next slide. Okay, so the rise of local first software. So I came across this whole topic when I was browsing on YouTube, and I found a talk by the CTO of Linear. I don't know if anyone here knows Linear. It's a project management tool. So he spoke about sync engines and how they built the one Linear uses. And I found that very interesting because it's super technical, and he discusses the intricacies of how it started out and where they are today. So local first software has been on the rise for a while now, and I mean, some of us here, all of us here, we have had encounters with like bad internet, no service, etc., etc. And most of the times, most of the apps or web apps on our phones, we cannot use them because they are not optimized for, they are not optimized to be local first. Yeah, they need an active internet connection for you to access your data even. So local first software or local first applications make it easier for you to use, the apps or software on even when you have no internet. So yeah, next slide. Next slide. So I don't know if you can see the diagram here, but at, at the top, at the top left, we have the traditional cloud-based architecture. So what happens is the front end sends a request to the server or the back end, and the response comes back, and then it stores the data on the database in the cloud. So now you can see it takes bandwidth, and there's also latency involved. So it can take some time for your request to be processed and the results sent back. But with local first architecture, what happens is the front end reads data from local storage. By local storage, okay, by local storage, I don't mean like the local storage on the browser. It could be other forms of local databases such as SQLite and IndexedDB. So what the front end does is it reads data from the local store, and it also saves data to the local store while you're offline. And when you are connected to the internet, it now synchronizes with the server. Remember the sync engine I was talking about from earlier, which Linear uses. And then, so once the synchronization is done, it then saves the data on the cloud to ensure that your data is secure, or your data is backed up, basically, in case anything happens to your device. Next slide. Okay, so key principles of local first applications. So one is no loading spinners. Two is internet connectivity is optional. And three is multi-device sync. Four is data longevity. Then there's seamless collaboration, and there's privacy and user control. So no loading spinners. So like I said before, with traditional web apps, when you make a request, it takes time for the server to process that request. So what happens is you see a loading spinner to indicate that your request is being processed. But then with local first apps, the aim is to have no spinners at all. So your data is, the read and write is instant. Then internet connectivity is optional. I mean, as the name implies, local first. And then multi-device sync, being able to synchronize this data between multiple devices. And then data longevity. So with traditional cloud first applications, what happens is your data is being stored on the server somewhere. You don't have any access to your data. Let's say anything happens to the server. Yeah. So imagine Google shuts down for some reason, which is very unlikely. But imagine Google shuts down. You have no access to all of your data because everything was stored on their servers. But with local first apps, what happens is all the data is stored locally and then synchronized with the cloud database. Then seamless collaboration. So examples of applications that have like seamless collaboration is Google Docs, Google Sheets, Notion, etc., etc., Figma. Yeah. So they all have seamless collaboration, and the goal with local first apps is yes, we don't need internet connectivity. Yes, we don't need loading spinners, but then we should be able to collaborate to say you need to edit a document while you're offline. When you come back online, those changes should automatically merge. Then we have privacy and user control. So if all your data is stored locally, you have all the rights and you have all the access to your data, and this leads to better privacy and control over your own data. Next slide. So there's a quote, and I like this quote. It says, "Any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic." So when I was first learning about local first apps and sync engines, I was like, how the hell are they doing this? Yeah, but then reading more and diving deeper into the topic, to the layman, it would seem like magic because what do you mean I don't need internet to be able to use an app on my phone or a web app? So yeah, this quote was actually not done by someone, was not made by someone technical. It was by a fictional writer called Alan Clark. Next slide, please. So with this talk, my aim, as you can see, I don't aim for it to be super technical, but the aim of this talk is to, nobody raised their hands up. So the aim of this talk is to make local first architecture more, what's the word? Yeah, more appealing. Yeah, thank you. More appealing to us developers and also product managers, in fact. Next slide. So a brief technical overview. So we'll just discuss what the steps are to building local first web apps and what you need to do. So next slide. Okay, one is you need to convert your existing application to a PWA. So like I said, this step-by-step approach is going to be tailored towards web applications. So first thing you need to do is convert it to a PWA. Does anyone here know what a PWA is? Nobody knows what a PWA is. Okay, I see some hands. Okay, cool. So yeah, PWA is basically progressive web apps. What they do is they make sure you are able to use your apps locally. Yeah. Say, for example, Google Docs now. Google Docs is I think you can set it up as a PWA. You can install it. So what PWAs do is they use what they call a service worker to manage the synchronization of data between your local storage and the cloud database. So how it works is, so the service worker basically is a middleman, and it makes sure, so if you're offline, what it does is it knows how to fetch data from your local store instead of online, and then when you come back online, it then automatically fetches data from the server instead. Then, so that's the first step. The second step is to use local storage solutions. So like I mentioned earlier, Local storage solutions, example, local storage, yeah, is one. But then we also have IndexedDB. So IndexedDB is a database, yeah, that lives on your browser. So it works in your browser, all your data is stored on your browser. And then there's SQLite. SQLite is more of an SQL database, but like it's very lightweight, it's a single file, requires no servers, and all your data is stored, and you can query the data like you would a normal database. Um, then the next is building a robust sync mechanism with CRDTs. Now, what does CRDT mean? CRDT means conflict-free resolution data types. Yeah, and so what CRDT does is, say you make edits offline, and someone else makes edits offline. When you come online, or when both of you come online, CRDT will intelligently merge those changes to make sure that everything is up to date. Then the next step is adding encryption for secure local and cloud storage. So remember, with local first apps, all the data is offline, but then at some point you have to back it up because anything can happen to your users' devices. So yeah, it should be encrypted and secure. Next slide. So this is how CRDTs work on a high level. Um, so you have user one, you have user two, and you have user three, all of them making changes to a file at the same time. Yeah, it doesn't have to be at the same time, it could be different times, but all of them are offline and they are all making changes to the file. So what happens is, like I mentioned earlier, CRDTs intelligently merge these changes. So if you've used Git before, you know how Git merge works, but with Git merge, when you have conflicts, what happens is you have to manually address those conflicts. But with CRDTs are intelligent enough to use a combination of factors such as the time a change was made to know how to arrange the data sequentially. Yeah, yeah. Sometimes you do have to manually, because I mean, software is not perfect and some mistakes could happen. So you might have to manually do that. But CRDTs are more intelligent than your regular Git merge when you have a conflict. So then, why build local first apps for developers? So local first apps greatly simplify your backend architecture. You don't have to worry about a lot of the back and forth that each user has to make, like with each request. So this like simplifies the architecture for your backend, and it reduces. Yeah. So the next step, lower operational costs due to reduced server load. So because there's not all these requests flying around, there's reduced server load, and basically you spend less money. And then we have easier state management. Next slide, please. Okay, so for users, why do we want local first apps? So one is, so basically all of the goals of local first apps are are from a user perspective, yeah, and you can find them here. So one is instant responsiveness and reduced latency. So remember the whole no loading spinners goal. So this is it. We don't want to see a loading spinner. We want everything to happen instantly. And then offline functionality for uninterrupted usage. So remember where we said internet connectivity should be optional. So that's it right there. And then enhanced privacy and data ownership. So all of your data is offline. And if anything happens to some remote server out there, you still have all of your data with you. Next slide. Then what are the challenges of local first applications? So one is storage limitations. There's only so much data you can store on the user's device, unfortunately. Um, so some ways around this could be, I think so for example, I think what Notion does is, and a lot of other apps out there, what they do is they download only the parts that you need, the data that you need, and then when you come back online, everything is synced. So that way, you're not downloading the entire app content or all of your data at one go. And then there's offline debugging. So if your user is having an issue locally, yeah, how do you begin to detect how do you begin to detect the issue? So that's another challenge. And then data loss due to user-facing issues. So what happens if your user does not update or does not come online for like weeks or months, yeah, even years. Some people that don't like to turn on their data. Um, so what then happens? Or let's say your users' devices get stolen, or they get damaged, or there's a virus or something. So all of that data then goes away, and say they didn't back it up, or they didn't come online for it to sync, all the data would then be gone. All the data that was stored locally would be gone if they were not backed up already. Next slide. So key takeaways. Local first apps enhance the user experience, privacy, and reliability. And then it's local first apps are also really easy to do, really easy to build with the right tools. So there's, for example, for databases that have, let's say, more storage capacity than, let's say, local storage or indexed DB. Those also exist, and they make building local first apps really easy. And then they also empower your users to stay productive anywhere, anytime. So I can open up my phone, use my Notion, and save a note. I think there's also like Obsidian. Obsidian does this. Then another note-taking tool. I think Figma also does this as well. There are a bunch of apps that all embrace the local first architecture, and I like them personally because I can be productive anywhere, anytime. Next slide. Then resources. I don't know if this is visible, but then the first link there is a link to Ink and Switch. So it contains an article that briefly describes local first architecture by the authors, the people that started the whole local first movement. So it contains a detailed article. So the link is inkandswitch.com/local first. And then the second one is localfirstweb.dev. Localfirstweb.dev. So that link contains, conference talks, blog articles, etc., etc. I think there are also communities dedicated to the whole local first movement. So, and you can also find out how some of the challenges are being addressed. Next slide. So yeah, that's all from me. As you can see, I tried my best to not bore all of you to death. So yeah, let's connect. You can find me at Kodini on Twitter, X, and Iniubong Obonguko on LinkedIn. And then you can also send me an email at hello@iniubong.com. Yeah, that's all from me. Any questions?